2026 Boston Marathon. This one is taking place on April 20th, 2026. We have some course insights for you, but before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, share all that fun stuff. If you need any coaching assistance or advice on the course as an individual catered towards you, make sure you do reach out down below. So let's dive in. So make sure you do check out their race website. It's one of the best out there. It has a host of information, info for athletes. When you head over to the downward tab, info for athletes right here, it has pretty much everything you need to know about the race course right here. The specific course is going to look like this. This is our start. We're running from a point to the finish line over there. The course downloaded PDF is going to look like this. It's going to have a little bit more detail on it. It's going to have specific landmarks and things like that located along the way. It's also going to have elevation mixed in throughout the day. Elevation is going to be a huge factor, and this is what it looks like in a more generic version of it to get it a little more simplified for you. So how do we attack this course here? So realize that the first, we can see this on either way over here. We'll go back and forth for you throughout this one, but realize on this course here, we have a lot of miles that are a net downhill mixed throughout here. It's a good thing, it's a bad thing, and you just got to watch out for it. It's not that it's going to really hurt you or really assist you. It's going to impact your running, your stride specifically. After that point, we do have the Newton Hills, which takes place from right over here to about over here, and then we got the big ones that are mixed in with Heartbreak Hill and right over here. When we look at the major elevation points, the steepest part of the of our race over here is not Heartbreak Hill, which is this one right here. It is actually coming at a different spot, which is about 16 and a half mile marker right there. So the Heartbreak Hill isn't overly aggressive, right? I believe you only climb 90 feet of elevation out there. So it's not that it's a crazy hill. It's just that it comes at exactly the wrong time of the race. That's the biggest problem with it. Last big section over here is the last 5 miles of the race. We do have a net downhill big time during this stretch of road, but you're not going to be able to take advantage of it if you have totally blown yourself to pieces leading up to this point in the race. So that is the quick and dirty of it. So the on-course hydration, nutrition, again, make sure you head over to the athlete tab over here. But the athlete course nutrition is going to have the Morton hydrogels at mile 18, or excuse me, mile 11.8, 17, and 21 and a half. Again, coming at pretty much the wrong times over here. We do have the 21 one coming after Heartbreak Hill, which is great, awesome, perfect. 17, it's going to come again right at the point of a hill, and then 11.8 mile marker way back over here, right through here. Again, if you take these gels and you are running with them for a little bit, chances are you're going to experience a hill soon afterwards. So make sure that you are not taking it during the middle of that hill because it's going to put a lot of extra strain and stress on your body. This course is a course that rewards athletic fueling later on in the event. But what most athletes do is they totally overrun this race here and they limit their ability to take in some of that nutrition that is absolutely paramount later in the race. So make sure you are pacing yourself effectively, and that will set up your nutritional intake to be consistent and happening throughout, and you will be able to attack the last section of the race. Gatorade Endurance. Keep in mind, it does have a higher sodium content than traditional Gatorade, so if you haven't practiced with it before, make sure you do. I personally love it, and we used to have it in races all the time, but now we do not, so it's good to see that it's still happening in a race here. So, a simple race day template for you. Start fueling early and often. Think every 20 minutes or so. The Morton gels, you can kind of use them as like icings on the cake. 11.8, I would definitely have at least one of those. 17, I would definitely take it. And then 21 and a half, you can kind of take it or leave it depending on how you're doing. Keep in mind, you do have about 5 miles left to go in the race. So that is not an essential one in my book, but it was definitely one of the ones that is questionable for you. Speaking of questions, weather, wind, this happens in a couple different ways. The first way that it happens is obviously the wind assist. Second way that it happens is the headwind, and that comes with a couple different challenges. So if you are experiencing a tailwind, the tailwind is pretty much what you could normally expect out here on race day. If that is the case, keep in mind your thermoregulation becomes much more critical out here. Say it's a 10 mile an hour tailwind assist from start to finish, right? If you are running at 10 miles an hour, you're not getting any of that evaporative effect off of your skin, that cooling effect, right? Contrast that with our headwind, right? If you are running into a headwind, you're getting a lot of that evaporative function off of your body, and you are actively cooling yourself off a little bit more. Another aspect of that, when you do have the headwind scenario from east to west, usually there's a storm coming in. The weather is usually worse that way, all right? So you're going to have to weigh the pros and the cons of each. Now, thinking back to our original scenario from mile 0 to 7, so that's these first couple miles through here, and this is the point of mile 7 right here. These sections, it's early. Usually athletes are really pumped up and people are flying. And you got to watch out for that. The headwind here, this can kind of mask things and this can kind of trick you into feeling that this is the appropriate pace for you. So you have to be aware of that headwind, and if it is cooling you off fictitiously, you know. If you have a tailwind, it's going to be a little bit more easy to identify, especially during this first 7 mile stretch out here. We do have our net downhill right here. The second section, mile 11 to 17, this is going to be the bread and butter of the race right here. This is typically where you're going to have more crowds start to creep in. You're going to have that feel-good mentality out here. And those two things can wreak havoc on your race if you let it. A lot of athletes just get stimulus from the external places out there, and with that, you get fictitiously pumped up. You hit some of the crowds out here. You get some of the pockets of spectators, and you get really pumped up. And that happens a couple times throughout this section. And athletes, if you're not careful, you will find yourself surging during this section, where in fact you want to avoid that. Obviously, miles 16 to 21 ish. You do have the hills mixed in here. We have everyone knows the Heartbreak Hill. And again, Heartbreak Hill is not the end all be all of this race. That hill is, I mean, you can go up it and you'll run it hopefully in the days or two leading up to the race, or you could just head out there and just take a look at it. It's not crazy, but it's everything that's happened before the hill that's the problem, you know? All right, so let's talk elevation really fast just over the course of our race from 0 to mile 10, this stretch of road right through here, and we can dive in it a little bit differently here. So during this stretch of road out here, this is going to be where athletes find themselves really, really quad dominant. They're eccentrically loading, they're having high braking costs, they're overstriding, and again, this is all masked with the feeling if there is a tailwind. With a tailwind, other pockets of people, and your adrenaline's kicking in, you're running the Boston Marathon. Heck yeah, right? But a lot of people forget that everyone around them, it's not a typical marathon. It is everyone's there because they're fast and everyone it deserves to be there. You know, there is no accidental Bostons out here. So everyone kind of forgets that and they try to run the race and they want to arrive at that 10-mile marker with what they traditionally feel like at a local race or a lower tier race, right? Mile 10, usually it's a little more spread out. They got a little more room to run. That's not going to be the case at Boston. You're not going to really run away from other people. So athletes that's another reason why they fall into a trap of, whoa, I should feel different at this mile marker. You know, usually I have less people around me. I've got more room to do what I want to do and spread out. And here, it's not going to be the case. So just, watch out here. The next little stretch out here from mile 10 to mile 16, right at the top of this hill right here. So during this section over here, this is like deceptive free speed, right? This is the point where everyone starts to fall into their rhythm, and you can see right here, 8.2 miles, we have 320 feet of gain, but we also have 340 feet of loss. So more loss again here, even though the hills look like they should have more. You still have more elevation loss here. So again, this is our free speed area, but this free speed only comes if you've respected the first 10 miles. And I'm not going to lie, most of you are fit enough. I mean, you're at the Boston Marathon, for goodness sake. Most of you are going to get to this point, even if you've overdone the first 10 miles, and be able to continue to overdo it here. Chances are you've done it in your training runs many times, right? Problem is, you can see it already popping up over here, are these hills right here. And the first one that it really hits you is probably even back at mile 16 popping up over here. And then again at mile 17 and a half, lasts until about mile 18, let's call it. Third waterfall effect, we have 19.3. Pretty much up to 19.7, and then the one at 20.4 to about what is that up here? Let's call it 20. Let's call it 20.9, 20.8. And that is what really, really gets you out here. So the mile 10 to 16, that's really the opportunity to start running your race how you want it. Just realize there's going to be other people around you, and you're probably not going to be used to that. So don't let that bother you. Mile 16 to 21, that is our real fatigue test right through here. This is our fatigue test. If you've overdone it, you'll know it at this spot with 1, 2, 3, 4 hills right here, all in rapid succession in this 5-mile stretch, 345 feet of gain, 149 feet of loss with our max grade happening at 6.4% out here. Okay, after we hit this section, once you get back over here, you're going to have that aid station right at the top there, and then you're going to have a downhill effect over here. So for these last 5.5 miles, we have elevation gain of 74, but a loss of 300, and everyone's going to see this and say, wow, I'm going to really crush this. But you're only going to be able to do that if your quads have survived the previous 3 questions. So when you hit this first couple of probably miles 0 to 10, and we back up over here from miles 0 to 10. When you hit these first 10 miles, you'll see a lot of real reaching forward out there. You're going to see cadences that are dropping. You're going to see a lot of excessive ground force striking here. What you really want to focus on, you're going to want to focus on your quick feet, landing under your hips, all the typical form things, right? But you might find that your cadence is a little bit higher, especially in places where it's a downhill for a longer period. You might find that your cadence is a little bit higher than what you're used to, and that's okay, as long as your stride isn't excessively longer than normal and you're still landing underneath you. Because if you're not, typically what happens is that stride slows down, you elongate that stride, and then you do everything that we've talked about already. All right, so watch out for that. From our speed test, mile 10 to 16, right through here. This section of road in our free speed section, this is typically where you're going to see the first signs of major fatiguing. You're going to see some of the pelvis drops. You're going to see trunk twists, foot strikes crossing the middle line. You're going to start to see all that, especially on some of our increases over here. Make sure you're taking note of what's happening to you so you can kind of counteract that a little bit. If you need to slow down, slow down. A lot of athletes, you know, they get in that ego right here, and then the ego fuels their race day failure out here. Don't let that happen to you. Right? So run, again, I'm going to say some generic cues out here. You're going to want to run tall right here. Make sure your ribs are down, not flared out. Make sure your elbows are back, and you want to keep your stride clean, right? All right, so our hill trap. Let's go to our hills right through here. During this section, section number 3 out here, there's really not a whole lot to say. You're going to want to maintain your pace up on the hill, but that's a trap, right? You're going to obviously have to slow down your pace a little bit when you run up some of these hills, because if you don't, you're going to excessively burn the glycogen in your body. You're going to need more fuel, and if you don't have fuel, it's just a downward cascading spiral from there. Again, we got 4 tests in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, coming in 5 miles right here. So again, you're going to want to maintain your effort. This is where a lot of athletes get confused. They're usually running by pace, power, whatever, right? Heart rate. You're going to want to maintain the feeling of your race intensity, not the actual intensity, okay? So maintain the that feeling out there. All right, so the last section, section number 4, coming out from 20 to 26.2. Again, elevation loss is about 300 out here. And again, you're only going to be able to take advantage of this if your quads and your running style dictates it, okay? So if your quads are cooked, your stride length is going to collapse and your cadence won't be able to rise. Compounding that, you're going to have a slight forward lean only from the ankles. You're going to have a lot of hip leaners through this section, and it's going to definitely take its toll. Fast turnover is also a critical factor here, but you have to be careful of the reaching for the speed. Do not reach for the speed. Okay, so what can you do now leading up to Boston? Well, downhill reps if you have the terrain available to you. If you don't, right, treadmill running is is great. I usually don't advocate for it, but I will be an advocate for it here. So you can practice some of those cadence risers out there because that's going to be a real benefit to you. All right. If you want to do some strength work in between now and then, I mean, race is coming up, so we're kind of coming down to the wire on that. I would reach out to me on an individual basis and I can give you some stuff. But long runs, you're going to want to focus on, again, you can break this you can break this long run up into a really great training run easily, right? Think back to our 4 sections that we have, the downhill, the free speed, and the risers over there, and you can break it up with this downhill section, right? So when you do this section in your long runs, you can maintain a higher rate of turnover before settling into your typical stride rate right here. All of this is going to be done at marathon pace out here. Then what you can do is a couple of little efforts out here. Again, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 main efforts out here. So again, you can easily interject 4 little efforts into your run out there, and then you can do the same thing you did for the first part of your longer run with some not over strides, but over cadence drill work right here at the same rate of speed. And again, it doesn't have to be a marathon distance. You can break that up into that 4-section mode, that 4-section mentality out there, and you can have a great training stimulus right there. So again, just breaking it up really fast over here, 0 to 10 miles. You're going to want to minimize the damage out there. You're going to want it to be controlled, but not super duper fast out here. If it's unrealistic for you, chances are it is. From mile 10 to 16, again, you're going to want to lock your rhythm, your pace. Fueling, all of that fun stuff is going to be essential. Don't surge in the crowds. Don't let other people bother you out there. It's going to be what it is. Don't worry about it. 16 to 21, those are the hills. Those are the major stressor areas out here. This is going to be where you can set yourself up for success or failure for these first 16 miles, and then from 16 to 21, that's the test. 21 to the finish, you'll know if you've passed the test or not. All right, again, keep fueling, keep minimizing the quad damage, keep that cadence over there. Watch the stride length on this course, and that is the Boston Marathon 2026 edition. Good luck, everybody, and again, if you need any coaching assistance, advice, just want to dish about it, please reach out below. My contact info is down there. Good luck, everybody.